Have you ever noticed that there are things in your life that just don't seem to work? It's as if there's a hidden force holding you back, preventing you from prospering, from living in peace, from achieving what should have happened long ago. Poverty that insists on knocking on your door, envy from people you never even imagined, traps set for you without you having done anything to deserve it. It seems unfair, but that's exactly what happens in the spiritual world. And until you learn to position yourself with the right weapon, these cycles will continue to repeat themselves. Now pay attention, because what I'm going to show you here isn't theory. It's not idle talk. It's something thousands of people have already experienced. There is a key revealed by God that breaks these cycles of scarcity, envy, and persecution. This key is in the Word, and I'll show you how to use it practically. We're not talking about months, years, or decades of waiting. I'm talking about 3 days. 3 days of prayer in the morning that can change the course of your life once and for all. You'll understand why so many people remain trapped in seemingly hopeless situations and why few manage to break free. And the point is simple. Those who apply this spiritual key see doors open, see people who plotted against you confounded, and see poverty disappear. Sounds bold? Yes, but it's true. If you stay with me until the end of this video, you'll discover how to use this powerful weapon and put an end to this cycle of defeat. Get ready, because what I'm about to reveal to you could be the game changer you've been waiting for. Understand one thing. When you look at your life and see closed doors, dashed dreams, and seemingly inexplicable situations, the problem often lies not only in what you can see. There's an invisible world, a spiritual reality that acts silently but powerfully, directly interfering with your results, your emotions, and even your health. This is why so many people struggle, work hard, do everything in their power, and still see no progress. The root of the problem isn't just physical or mental effort, but a spiritual battle that few can perceive. And perhaps that's precisely what you're facing right now, without realizing it. A war that isn't won with human strength, but with spiritual weapons. It's uncomfortable to admit, but there are times when you feel like someone or something is against you, as if the amount of struggle you face is unfair. People trying to pull the rug out from under you, envy that comes from where you least expect it, situations that repeat themselves as if they were an endless cycle. None of this is just coincidence. When the Bible talks about the enemy plotting hidden plans, it's describing exactly this reality. There's a war going on all around you, even when you don't see it. And if you don't learn to recognize this, you end up wasting your energy in the wrong places, fighting with people, blaming yourself, or thinking you were simply born to suffer. But that's not the case. You weren't born to live trapped in defeat, much less to accept this condition as normal. Think about it. If you had a hidden enemy attacking you, but you didn't know it, how would you defend yourself? You would tire, get frustrated, and give up halfway. But the moment you understand that the fight is spiritual, everything changes. Because then you begin to use the right weapon, and the right weapon is the Word of God in action, applied with faith. It's like someone who finally turns on the light in a dark room and sees where the problem lies. This clarity is the first step to breaking cycles of poverty, failure, and persecution. And when you understand this, you stop wasting energy trying to fix what's on the surface and start attacking the root. How many times have you wondered why evil people seem to prosper, while hard-working, honest people continue to suffer? This is the hardest part to face. It's not enough to have good intentions, it's not enough to be honest, because the spiritual world doesn't respect naivete. It respects authority, and authority comes from those who know how to use the weapons God has given them. This is a point you need to keep in mind. You can continue fighting with your own strength, trying to control every detail of your life, or you can take a spiritual stand, understanding that prayer is the shield and the Word is the sword you need to win. And that's exactly what Psalm 35 will show you when you learn to use it correctly. Maybe you're thinking right now, but does this really work? And I want you to answer that yourself with some reflection. How many times have you tried to solve your problems with human effort alone and failed? And how many times when you decided to surrender to God and pray with faith, did things begin to fall into place in ways you could never have planned? This difference is no coincidence. It's proof that the war isn't just against flesh and blood, as the Bible says, but against spiritual forces. This explains why you often feel a weight you can't explain, a resistance you don't understand where it comes from, and even situations of envy and persecution that arise for no reason. This is where something important comes in. You need to learn to discern when you're facing a natural struggle and when you're facing a spiritual battle. This clarity will save you time, energy, and tears. Because when you know the problem is spiritual, you no longer spend sleepless nights worrying about what people say or think about you. You understand that those who oppose you are actually being used to distract you. And in that moment, instead of wearing yourself out, you rise up in prayer and place before God whatever is attacking you. That's why I want you to comment below on the word war, because it shows that you understand that the fight is not against people, but against forces that want to steal your peace and prosperity. Now, the point is, it's no use simply acknowledging that a spiritual war exists. You need to decide how you're going to fight. Most people's mistake is thinking that repeating words or following empty rituals is enough, as if it were magic. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a living faith, purposeful prayer, and declaring the word with authority. This is the difference between someone who prays and sees no results and someone who prays and sees walls crumbling. It's not a mechanical act, but the attitude of someone who believes and knows they're using the most powerful weapon there is. When you adopt this attitude, envy loses its power, hidden agendas fall apart, and even poverty, which seemed like a sentence, begins to disappear from your life. I know you might be tired of struggling and not seeing results, and that's precisely why this video is so important to you. Because here you're not just hearing a motivational message, you're receiving practical guidance to act spiritually and see results physically. And from the next point on, I'll show you how to use this powerful weapon in practice so you can see for yourself the difference it can make in just 3 days of morning practice. What you've just received here has the power to change your life in concrete ways. You've understood that the battle is real, that there is a way out, and that the Word of God is the weapon that will break cycles of poverty, envy, and persecution. This kind of revelation doesn't come along every day, and now that you've been touched by it, it's only right to share this same transformation with others. So, like this video and subscribe to the channel to continue receiving practical guidance and messages that strengthen your faith. This is the way to keep this chain of victory alive and help even more people break free from everything that was holding them back. You know that feeling when you realize you're fighting with all your might, but it feels like you're just trying to mop up ice. You work, you strive, you dedicate yourself, but something always seems to slip through your fingers. This frustration isn't just yours. It's a reality for many people. The problem is that while you try to solve everything with your own logic and strength, you forget that there's something greater and more powerful that has already been delivered to you, the Word of God. This is where many people go wrong, because they view the Bible as an ordinary book full of ancient stories, when in fact it is the most current and practical tool for overcoming the battles you face today. The Word isn't just a record, it's alive, it's active, and it works like a weapon that cuts through and undoes whatever has been rigged against you. Look, I know it may seem like an exaggeration, but think about it. How many times have you heard of people who recited verses in the midst of impossible situations and suddenly change happened? This is no coincidence. It's a direct effect of the power that exists in the Word when used with faith. It's like having a sharp sword in your hands that can cut through where everything seems closed. But here's the detail that few understand. It's not enough to simply know what's written. You have to use it. It's like having a powerful weapon kept in a drawer and continuing to face the enemy empty-handed. And perhaps that's exactly what's happening to you. You may even know some verses, but you haven't yet learned to use them as a response to poverty, envy, or attacks that arise without explanation. The Word of God has the power to change atmospheres, transform environments, and open doors that have been locked for years. When you pray based on what is written, it's not just your voice that echoes, it's God's authority that manifests. It's as if you're reminding the spiritual world that there's a promise over your life, and God's promise cannot be annulled. But to do this, you need to take a stand. There's no point in leaving the Bible on the shelf, open to any psalm as if it were an amulet. It doesn't work that way. What works is when you take that word, bring it into your heart, and begin to declare it with faith, believing it will come to pass. It's at this point that the chains begin to break and the enemy loses ground. It's curious how many people prefer to believe in magic spells, magical solutions, or even baseless advice, while ignoring the very thing that can truly change everything. Have you ever noticed this? How often do people rush in all directions, spending time, money, and energy trying to resolve their struggles, but neglect the most powerful weapon there is? This happens because the enemy knows that the moment you discover the power of the word, he loses control. He may even try to deceive you, but he can't resist a declaration made in God's name. And that's precisely what I want you to begin to experience in practice. I want you to reflect now. When was the last time you used the word as a direct response to something you were facing? I'm not talking about just reading a verse for the sake of it, but declaring it with conviction, repeating it until your heart believed and the environment around you began to change. If you've never done this, perhaps that's why you feel stuck. And here's an important request. Comment below on the word sword, because that's what the word is for you. A sword that cuts and destroys everything that has been raised to prevent you from moving forward. When you write this, you already begin to position yourself. You already begin to declare that you will use the right weapon from now on. And I need to tell you something that may shock you, but it's necessary. Until you put the word into practice, you will continue to face battles greater than you can handle alone. But the moment you learn to use it, the tables are turned. People who are plotting against you begin to be confused. Doors that seemed locked begin to open, and even areas of your life that were stagnant begin to flourish. And it's not because you've become smarter or stronger, but because you've started fighting the right way. That's why so many people, after learning this principle, share testimonies of transformation that seem impossible. The difference isn't in human effort, it's in using the word as it was intended, as a weapon. Now, if you've understood so far that the word is a sword capable of undoing hidden plans and bringing victory to areas that seemed lost, in the next step you'll discover something even more practical, because it's not enough to simply know that a weapon exists. You need to learn to use it consistently and persistently until the impossible becomes reality. How many times have you started something enthusiastically but stopped halfway because you thought it wasn't working? This happens in many areas of life, but especially when it comes to prayer. Many people pray 1 day, 2 days, and expect everything to change overnight. When they don't see immediate results, they give up, thinking it doesn't work, or worse, believing God isn't listening. This is one of the biggest mistakes, because prayer isn't a magic button you press and the problem disappears. Prayer is persistence, it's discipline, it's a daily decision to take a stand and say, I won't give up until I see the answer. The big issue is that most people want quick results, but they don't understand that there's a spiritual process happening. When you pray persistently, something is being moved in the invisible. It's like when you try to chop down a tree with an axe. Sometimes the first time nothing happens, the second time nothing happens either. But with each blow, the root weakens, until suddenly the tree falls. Prayer works exactly like that. Each word you speak in faith weakens whatever was holding you back, until suddenly the result appears. But this suddenly only happens because you didn't give up sooner. And this is where the importance of praying for 3 consecutive days in the morning comes in, as we will practice with Psalm 35. This isn't superstition. It's not magic. It's spiritual discipline. It's you saying to yourself and to the spiritual world, I'm determined, I won't stop. I'll persist until I see change. This constancy is powerful because it shows that your faith isn't a momentary faith, but a firm faith. And this is exactly the kind of faith that unlocks answers. People who give up halfway never reach their destination. But those who persist, even when it seems like nothing is happening, are the ones who reap the rewards. Let me give you a simple example. Think of someone starting a diet. In the first few days, they don't see any difference in their body. They haven't lost any weight yet, but something has already started to change inside. Their metabolism is reacting, their body is adjusting, and if they stop at this point, they'll never see results. But if they keep going, sooner or later the numbers on the scale will drop. The same thing happens with prayer. In the first few days it may seem like nothing is happening, but something has already started to move. That's precisely why you can't give up. Maybe you've been in that situation of praying and feeling like God wasn't listening. But let me tell you, God hears every word. Silence doesn't mean absence. It means He's working in ways you can't yet see. That's when you need to persist. Because the moment you give up, It's like you're giving up the battle halfway through. And how many victories have been lost because someone stopped just one step before the answer arrived? This is where I want to challenge you. Don't just pray once. Don't pray only when you feel like it. Establish a discipline. 3 days may seem short, but they are 3 days of total focus, of living faith, of firm declaration. And I want you to understand that it's not just about praying, but about deciding not to stop until you see change. This kind of persistence is what separates those who experience miracles from those who only hear about them. And it's precisely at this point that I want you to comment below on the word persistence, because that's what will make the difference in your life from now on. Whoever writes this is already declaring that they won't stop halfway, but will persist until they see results. Now, pay attention to something important. Persistence doesn't mean repeating words mindlessly, automatically. Persistence is putting your heart into it, declaring with faith each time you pray, even if it seems tiring, because prayer isn't about convincing God, it's about aligning yourself with His purpose and empowering the spiritual world to move in your favor. This is the key many don't understand. It's not just quantity, it's quality. It's consistency with intensity. And when you start practicing this, the results appear. People who were against you lose strength. Doors that were closed begin to open. Situations that seemed impossible begin to unlock. But all of this only happens because you stood firm, even when it seemed like nothing was happening. And it's precisely at this point that many people lose their opportunity. The enemy knows that if he can make you give up, he's already won. That's why he'll discourage you, distract you, and try to steal your focus. But if you resist and keep going, you'll reap what God has already prepared. And now that you understand the power of persistence, in the next point you will see something even stronger. Because it is not enough to just persist, you need to understand how faith and prayer together open paths to things that, humanly, seemed totally impossible. How many times have you heard a story of someone who seemed to be at rock bottom and suddenly everything changed? Situations where logic dictated there was no way out, but a turnaround happened so unexpectedly that no one could explain it. These stories aren't just coincidences. They're living testaments to what happens when prayer is practiced with true faith. There's something powerful when you decide to align your life with God and put into practice what the Word says. And it's precisely in these moments that you realize that miracles aren't a thing of the past. They continue to happen today. I want you to understand this clearly. Prayer is not theory, it's practice. It's not a pretty idea to make us comfortable. It's action that generates transformation. When you hear stories of people who lived in poverty and managed to get back on their feet, who were in debt and suddenly saw a way out, or even who faced severe persecution and saw their enemies being confounded, know that the basis of these changes was the same: persistence in faith and trust in the power of prayer. This doesn't happen because someone got lucky or because circumstances simply changed. It happens because God answers those who take a stand and pray consistently. And maybe you even know people like this, people who seemed defeated but didn't give up. They chose to remain steadfast, praying, trusting, declaring the word, until something started to move. The thing is, these people weren't anything special. They weren't better than you. The only difference was how they chose to deal with the situation. Instead of accepting failure as definitive, they used faith as fuel to keep going. And that's exactly what can happen in your life too. Sometimes you might look at yourself and think, but I don't have the strength, I don't have enough faith, I don't know how to pray beautifully like other people. Let me tell you something that can ease your heart. God isn't looking for pretty prayers, He's looking for sincere hearts. He's not waiting for rehearsed phrases. He's waiting for you to speak truthfully, to declare His word with confidence. That's what makes the difference. It's not about appearances, it's about living faith. And when you understand this, you realize that you too can be the protagonist of a testimony. Think about it. How do you think someone feels after going through an impossible moment and seeing God answer? It's impossible to remain silent. It's impossible not to tell others what happened. And that's why testimonies are so powerful, because they not only strengthen the faith of those who experienced it, but also inspire those who hear it. They show that it's possible, that no matter how difficult your situation, God can still intervene. And that's what I want you to start believing from now on. If you've ever seen something change in your life through prayer, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't seen it yet, it's because your testimony is being prepared. This is the time for you to take a stand and say, I want to experience this too. And to make this even stronger, I want you to write the word testimony here in the comments. Because every time you write this, you're already declaring that you're going to experience something so powerful, so real, that it will impact not only your life, but also the lives of others. Now, let me give you an important insight. When you begin to pray and declare the word, things may not change immediately, but that doesn't mean nothing is happening. The answer is already on the way, and often God is working behind the scenes, arranging everything so that it happens at the right time. That's why testimonies are so impactful, because they show that, even when it seemed impossible, change has arrived. And this paves the way for something even greater, which you'll understand in the next point. Prayer isn't just for asking for things. It's the key that aligns your heart with God's will and opens the door to true prosperity. Many people still view prayer in a limited way, as if it were just a list of requests you present to God, hoping He will answer or not. But this is one of the biggest misconceptions, because prayer isn't just about asking. It's about aligning your life with God's will. And when this alignment happens, you not only receive answers, but begin to experience true prosperity. And here, I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about a fulfilled life, peace of heart, restored relationships, emotional strength to face difficulties, and wisdom to make the right decisions. Prosperity is much broader than having a full bank account. It's living a balanced life, without spiritual chains holding you back. Prayer with faith opens space for God to address not only your needs, but also your mindset. And this is essential because poverty and scarcity often stem not only from your wallet, but also from your mindset. Some people live believing they'll never have anything, that they'll always be last in line, that life is suffering and that's the end of it. These beliefs become invisible prisons that keep people trapped in cycles of defeat. But when you begin to pray based on the word, these lies fall away, and you begin to see what God truly wants for your life. You begin to understand that you weren't born to be a slave to lack, but to live with abundance in every area. And it's impressive how this alignment generates transformation. Have you ever seen people who, even without much money, transmit peace, joy, and even manage to help others? This happens because true prosperity doesn't depend solely on numbers, but on the presence of God guiding every step. At the same time, there are cases of people with a lot of money, but who lack peace, lack a structured family, and lack rest. This shows that prosperity isn't just material, it's spiritual, and prayer is the key that unlocks this dimension. Now, let me give you a practical example. Imagine someone who was living in debt, full of worries, trying to solve everything alone. This person decides to start praying daily, placing their finances in God's hands and reciting biblical passages about provision and abundance. Little by little, they notice that the decisions they make change, that an unexpected opportunity appears, that doors begin to open. What seemed impossible begins to be resolved. This isn't magic. It's a consequence of spiritual alignment. When you pray with faith, you're not just asking for help. You're opening space for God to change the course of your life. And here's something you need to remember. Praying doesn't mean sitting back and waiting for everything to fall from the sky. True prayer awakens courage, clarity, and direction to act. It gives you peace of heart and focus to seize the opportunities that arise. It's as if prayer clears the road, allowing you to walk without stumbling over potholes that previously tripped you up. This is the difference between those who live trapped in scarcity and those who begin to experience prosperity. One prays only to ask, the other prays to align and act in faith. And I want you to take a stand now. Comment below on the word prosperity, because by writing this, you're already declaring that you no longer accept living trapped in lack, but that you will use prayer as the key to a full life. Write this as a decision, not just a loose word. What you need to understand is that prayer transforms you first, and then the environment around you. It adjusts your vision, strengthens your heart, and opens doors you never imagined. And that's exactly what will prepare you for the next step, because there's a specific promise in Psalm 35 that reveals how God undoes hidden traps and places you in a place of victory no one can stop. When you look at Psalm 35 carefully, you realize that it's no ordinary prayer. It's a declaration of spiritual warfare. It shows that God rises to fight alongside those who are being wronged, persecuted, or surrounded by hidden enemies. And this is powerful because it makes it clear that you are not alone in this battle. Envy, gossip, and traps set against you. All of these may exist, but Psalm 35 assures you that none of these things have the power to stand when you take a stand in prayer. It's as if you're calling God Himself to enter the fight on your behalf, and when He does, victory is certain. Many people underestimate the power of this psalm because they read it as if it were just an ancient text. But when you begin to pray intentionally, you realize that each word carries enormous spiritual weight. When you declare, "Lord, fight against those who fight against me," you're not just talking pretty, you're activating a promise of protection and justice. It's at this moment that hidden plans begin to unravel, that people who plotted against you become confused, that situations that seemed like traps turn against those who created them. And this isn't theory, it's practice. It's exactly the kind of thing that only those who live it understand the difference. And here's the point. Psalm 35 isn't just about protecting you, it also gives you rest. Because when you know God is fighting for you, you stop losing sleep, trying to solve problems on your own. You stop wasting energy fighting with people who don't deserve your attention. You learn to put the battle on the altar and trust that God will act. This trust is liberating because it lifts the weight off your shoulders and gives you the strength to keep walking without fear. Now think with me. How many problems in your life could be solved if you stopped wasting energy fighting in the natural world and started fighting in the spiritual world? How many times have you gotten into pointless arguments, trying to defend yourself from unfair attacks, when in reality all you needed to do was surrender the cause to God and let Him act? This is the secret revealed in Psalm 35. Your victory doesn't come from your own strength, it comes from divine intervention. And that's why I want you to comment below on the word victory, because by writing this, you're declaring that you believe God fights your battles and that no weapon formed against you will prosper. It's very important to understand that when you pray this psalm, you're not asking for revenge, you're asking for justice. There's a big difference. Revenge is born of human hatred, but justice is born from the heart of God. And when God steps in, He not only protects you, but also puts everything in its proper place. People who tried to harm you end up falling into their own traps, and you remain free, strengthened, and protected. And when you begin to live this reality, your faith grows impressively. You begin to understand that prayer is not just a religious habit, but a living weapon that changes scenarios and breaks down barriers. But there's something even deeper here. Beyond dispelling traps and protecting you, this psalm paves the way for prosperity to manifest in your life, because where there is freedom and protection, there is room for abundance to enter. And that's precisely what you'll begin to realize in the next section, where I'll show you how this promise connects to the concrete transformation you so long for. After everything you've understood so far, it's time to look at this psalm with even greater expectation. Because Psalm 35 doesn't just speak of deliverance and protection, it also speaks of victory and transformation. It's as if God is saying, I won't just defend you, I'll elevate you to a new level. And that's exactly what happens when you decide to pray consistently and with faith. The loneliness that seemed hopeless gives way to peace. The misery that seemed like a sentence begins to disappear, and even shame is exchanged for honor. This is the kind of change that can't be explained in words alone, because only those who experience it understand. Many people don't realize that God's protection isn't just to prevent evil from happening, but also to prepare the ground for good things to flourish. Think of someone who has always been the target of gossip, injustice, and persecution. When this person prays based on Psalm 35, not only do their enemies lose their strength, but new opportunities that were previously blocked also emerge. Doors that seemed closed open, people who previously didn't see value in them begin to recognize them, and paths that were dark become clear. This is the natural consequence of God fighting your battles. He makes room for you to experience prosperity and victory in ways you never imagined. That's why I insist so much on constancy, because it's not about rushing through a prayer and expecting miracles out of thin air. It's about getting into a spiritual routine that strengthens you internally and changes your circumstances externally. Each time you recite this psalm, It's as if you're reaffirming your belief that God is in control and that nothing can stop what He has planned for your life. This certainty is what sustains you when everything seems to be falling apart. It's what keeps you from giving up when difficulties try to suffocate you. And perhaps you're wondering, but will this work for me? It does, because it doesn't depend on your social standing, your level of knowledge, or how many times you've made mistakes in life. It depends solely on your decision to believe and put it into practice. God doesn't play favorites, He responds to faith. And the moment you take a stand and declare this psalm with authority, you activate promises that have always been available, just waiting for your step of faith. Now, you've realized how this content opened your eyes to see that the battle isn't just natural but spiritual, and that there's a powerful key to breaking cycles of poverty, envy, and persecution. If this message brought clarity and strengthened your faith, then it makes perfect sense for you to give back by helping others experience this same transformation. Just like and subscribe to the channel, because that's how this message reaches more lives who also need this liberation. And to show that you're truly determined to experience this change, comment below victory. This will cement your commitment and inspire others to do the same. And get ready, because the next video on your screen will take you even deeper into this process, with even more powerful, direct, and transformative revelations. It's the kind of knowledge that could be the game changer you've been waiting for.